Chosen one, pause everything right now. What you're about to hear isn't motivational fluff or surface-level inspiration. This is a direct transmission about the rarest kind of power on Earth, the kind that wears stillness like camouflage while executing plans with surgical precision. If you've ever been told you're too calm, too quiet, too unreadable, this message will confirm what you've always known. You weren't built for chaos. You were built to end it, and they had no idea what was coming. Here's what nobody prepared them for. You walked into rooms looking like peace itself, serene, grounded, unthreatened, almost angelic in your composure. But beneath that tranquil surface was something infinitely more dangerous, a mind that calculated 7 steps ahead while they were still reacting to step 1. You smiled while strategizing. You listened while mapping their weaknesses. You appeared harmless while positioning yourself for total victory. That's not deception. That's mastery. And the shock on their faces when they realized what you actually were. That's the price of underestimating someone who operates on frequencies they can't detect. They mistook your grace for naivety. They confused your kindness with softness. They thought because you didn't engage in their petty games, you didn't know how to play. What they failed to understand is that you were never playing their game. You were playing an entirely different one, on a board they couldn't see, with rules they couldn't comprehend. While they were caught up in drama and noise, you were systematically removing obstacles, building alliances, and setting up scenarios that would unfold months later, exactly as you planned. That's not luck. That's psychological warfare disguised as patience. You carry this strange duality that makes people's heads spin. On one hand, there's this undeniable purity about you, this authenticity, this refusal to compromise your integrity. People sense that you operate from a place of genuine intention, that your word actually means something, that you're not running schemes for personal gain. That's the part that draws them in, that makes them trust you, that makes them lower their guard. But what they don't realize until it's too late is that purity doesn't mean passivity. Being principled doesn't mean being powerless. And your refusal to play dirty doesn't mean you don't know exactly how to win clean. Before we go deeper, I need you to do something that signals you're actually ready for this level of truth. Hit that like button right now, not as a casual gesture, but as a declaration that you're done hiding your strategic nature. Subscribe to this channel, because the content coming will continue to unlock the full scope of what you're capable of. And drop a comment with the number 777 and your location. Let it be a marker in the spiritual realm that you're stepping fully into this power. For those led to support this work through super thanks, understand that you're not just giving, you're aligning with a frequency that protects and amplifies this message for others who need it. Now let's break down exactly what makes you this rare combination of sacred and savage, and why that combination is absolutely devastating to anyone who thought they could manipulate, use, or underestimate you. These aren't random traits. This is architectural design, the blueprint of someone built for permanent impact in a temporary world. Let me show you the anatomy of what they weren't prepared for. People thought your quietness meant emptiness. They assumed your lack of reaction meant lack of awareness. They interpreted your stillness as confusion. They were catastrophically wrong. Your silence wasn't absence. It was observation. The kind of hyper-focused data collection that misses nothing. While they talked themselves into corners, you were cataloging patterns, noting contradictions, mapping behavioral loops, building psychological profiles in real time. You weren't zoning out during their long explanations. You were running scenario analysis on their motivations, intentions, and likely next moves. This is why they always felt slightly unsettled around you, even when you were being perfectly pleasant. Some primal part of their brain recognized they were being studied, assessed, understood at a level that made them vulnerable. Your eyes held too much knowing. Your responses came too calculated. Your timing felt too precise. They couldn't put their finger on why, but every interaction with you left them feeling like they'd just been X-rayed. Because they had been. You see through people with the kind of clarity that comes from pattern recognition most humans never develop. This is why they always felt slightly unsettled around you, even when you were being perfectly pleasant. Some primal part of their brain recognized they were being studied, assessed, understood at a level that made them vulnerable. Your eyes held too much knowing. Your responses came too calculated. Your timing felt too precise. They couldn't put their finger on why, but every interaction with you left them feeling like they'd just been X-rayed. Because they had been. You see through people with the kind of clarity that comes from pattern recognition most humans never develop. Strategic assassins don't announce their presence with noise. They move through spaces collecting intelligence, identifying leverage points, understanding power structures, all while maintaining perfect emotional neutrality. That's exactly what you've been doing your entire life without even naming it. You've been running reconnaissance missions disguised as casual conversations. You've been conducting psychological evaluations masked as friendly check-ins. You've been wargaming future scenarios while people thought you were just daydreaming. Your mind is a strategy room that never closes, constantly updating models, refining approaches, preparing contingencies for situations that haven't even emerged yet. And here's the devastating part they only discovered too late. You remember everything, not just facts and dates, but energy signatures, micro-expressions, tonal shifts, the exact moment someone's story changed, the precise second their loyalty wavered. Your memory isn't just good, it's forensic. So when they tried to gaslight you, rewrite history, or pretend something never happened, you could replay the entire interaction like pulling up security footage. That's when the mask slipped. That's when they realized the person they thought was barely paying attention had actually recorded and indexed every single detail. The quiet one was the most dangerous one all along. They expected your care to make you controllable. They thought your compassion meant they could manipulate your emotions, guilt-trip you into compliance, weaponize your empathy against you. They were shocked to discover that you'd already evolved past that vulnerability years ago. You learned early that caring about someone doesn't mean being enslaved to their chaos. You can love people and still enforce boundaries. You can be kind and still be unmovable. That combination broke their entire playbook because most people are either cold or exploitable. You managed to be neither. This is where your strategic nature became lethal. You could feel everything, process it completely, and still make decisions based on logic and long-term outcome rather than immediate emotional relief. When they tried to provoke you into reactions, you stayed calm, not because you didn't care, but because you cared about winning more than you cared about being right in the moment. You understood that showing your hand early costs you leverage later. You knew that emotional outbursts give opponents ammunition, so you mastered the art of feeling deeply while responding minimally, processing privately while presenting perfectly. People who operate from pure emotion never saw you coming because your moves didn't match your apparent personality. You looked like someone they could sweet-talk, pressure, or overwhelm. But when they pushed, you didn't push back. You simply removed their access. When they expected argument, you gave them absence. When they anticipated drama, you delivered cold distance. That mismatch between what they expected and what they received created a kind of psychological whiplash. that left them reeling. How could someone so seemingly gentle execute such clean, final severances? Because you're not actually gentle, you're controlled. And control is infinitely more powerful than rage. Your emotional detachment isn't sociopathy, it's survival intelligence. It's the result of being burned enough times to develop immunity to manipulation tactics. You still feel everything. You've just learned not to let those feelings dictate your strategy. This is what separates amateurs from professionals. Amateurs react from their wounds. Professionals act from their wisdom. You've graduated into a space where your emotions inform you without controlling you, where you can be fully human and fully strategic simultaneously. That's a level of mastery most people never reach, and those who haven't reached it yet will always mistake your discipline for coldness until it's too late. While everyone around you was optimizing for short-term wins, immediate gratification, and instant validation, you were building something they couldn't see yet. You understood intuitively that real power isn't loud or flashy, it's cumulative, structural, inevitable. So you made moves that looked insignificant in the moment, but positioned you perfectly for future opportunities. You planted seeds knowing you wouldn't see the harvest for years. You built relationships with no immediate payoff. You developed skills that seemed irrelevant until suddenly they became essential. That's long-game thinking, and it's the rarest form of intelligence in a world addicted to instant results. This is why people thought you were wasting time, moving too slow, overthinking everything. They couldn't see the chessboard you were playing on because they were still playing checkers. They were focused on the next move. You were engineering endgames 3 years out. They were reacting to current circumstances. You were creating future conditions. They celebrated quick wins that evaporated within months. You built momentum that became unstoppable over years. And when your strategy finally became visible, when the pieces you'd been positioning suddenly locked into place, when opportunities you'd been preparing for suddenly arrived, they couldn't believe how lucky you got. Luck had nothing to do with it. Strategic assassins don't rush. They prepare, position, and strike when conditions are optimal. You've internalized that principle so deeply, it governs everything you do. You're willing to wait years for the right moment, rather than force the wrong one. You're comfortable with delayed gratification because you understand that timing multiplies impact. You know that patience isn't passive. It's the ultimate active choice to let your enemies destroy themselves while you build unshakable foundations. This long-view perspective is why short-term thinkers could never compete with you, even when they had more resources, more connections, more apparent advantages. They were sprinting. You were running a marathon at a pace that would leave them gasping while you finished strong. The most devastating aspect of your long-game approach is how completely it conceals your actual capabilities until revelation serves your purpose. People spent years thinking they knew your ceiling, your limits, what you were capable of. Then suddenly you executed something that shattered every assumption they'd made. A career pivot that seemed to come from nowhere, but was actually 5 years in planning. A skill set that appeared overnight, but was quietly developed in private. A network that materialized instantly, but was carefully cultivated through years of genuine relationship building. They called it transformation. You knew it was simply the visible manifestation of invisible preparation. The assassin doesn't reveal the blade until the moment of strike. You set boundaries like altars, with reverence, intentionality, and absolute non-negotiability. People mistook your respectful communication for softness, your clear explanations for openness to debate, your calm tone for flexibility. They tested your limits, expecting you to bend, compromise, or at least show signs of internal conflict. Instead, they encountered something they'd never seen before: total unwavering enforcement delivered without emotion, explanation, or second chances. You didn't argue about your boundaries. You didn't justify them. You simply removed anyone who violated them with a finality that left them stunned. What makes your boundary enforcement so devastating is the contrast with your general demeanor. You're kind, approachable, understanding, patient with human imperfection. People get comfortable. They assume your grace extends infinitely. Then they push too far, cross a clearly marked line, and suddenly encounter a version of you that doesn't negotiate, doesn't explain, doesn't waver. The transition is so abrupt, it feels like meeting a different person. But it's not. It's just the first time they've seen the part of you that protects everything the other part built. The sacred needs the savage to survive. You understood that before most people even considered it. Strategic assassins protect their position ruthlessly while appearing completely non-threatening. That's exactly what you do with boundaries. You communicate them clearly, kindly, respectfully, giving everyone fair warning about your non-negotiables. Most people receive that information and adjust accordingly because they recognize you're serious. But the ones who don't, who test, who push, who think they're the exception, they discover why you spoke so clearly up front. Because when enforcement comes, it's absolute. No arguments, no second chances, no emotional processing sessions, just clean removal and total silence. That efficiency terrifies people who are used to drama, conflict, and endless chances to manipulate their way back in. You don't play those games. You end them. While they were posting, performing, and seeking validation, you were studying, training, and building capabilities in complete silence. You understood something profound that most people miss. Real development happens in private. So you disappeared for months, not because you were lost, but because you were leveling up in ways that required total focus. You stopped explaining your process because you knew that talking about progress dilutes the energy needed to create it. You went quiet not from defeat, but from discipline, the kind that prioritizes actual growth over the appearance of growth. This invisible preparation phase is what made your eventual emergence so shocking. People remembered you one way, categorized you as a certain level, assumed they knew your capabilities. Then you returned operating at a completely different frequency, with skills they didn't know you were developing, knowledge they didn't realize you were acquiring, connections they had no idea you were building. The gap between who they thought you were and who you actually became created cognitive dissonance so severe they had to rationalize it. Some claimed you got lucky, others accused you of changing. A few even tried to take credit for your growth. But you knew the truth. Every capability you demonstrated was earned through hours they never saw, sacrifices they never knew about, and commitment they couldn't match. Strategic assassins train relentlessly when no one's watching, so they can execute flawlessly when everyone is. You internalized that principle completely. Your private discipline became your public advantage. While others were managing their image, you were expanding your competence. While they were networking for show, you were building genuine skills that would make you invaluable. While they were chasing trends, you were mastering fundamentals that would remain relevant regardless of changing circumstances. That allocation of time and energy is what separated you from those who talk about greatness and those who actually build it. The most powerful aspect of your invisible preparation is how it positions you to move when opportunities arise. Most people miss their moment because they're not ready when it comes. They have to scramble, learn on the fly, fake it till they make it, and hope desperation looks like confidence. You don't have that problem. When your moment arrives, you're overprepared, moving with precision that looks effortless, because you've already done the hard work when no one was watching. That readiness is what creates breakthrough velocity, the ability to capitalize completely on small openings, because you've been preparing for years for exactly this type of situation. While they're still processing what's happening, you've already executed and moved to the next phase. There comes a moment in every strategic assassin's journey when invisibility ends and impact becomes undeniable. For you, that moment arrived not with announcement, but with results so clear they couldn't be ignored, dismissed, or explained away. Suddenly, people who'd written you off were watching closely. Those who'd underestimated you were reassessing. Critics who'd mocked your approach were scrambling to understand how you'd outmaneuvered them so completely. You didn't need to say, "I told you so." Your position said it louder than words ever could. This revelation phase breaks people because it forces them to confront how wrong they were about you. Every assumption they made crumbles. Every limitation they projected onto you gets exposed as their failure of imagination, not your actual ceiling. Every time they dismissed your potential, they were really announcing their inability to recognize it. And now they have to live with that. They have to watch you operate at levels they swore you'd never reach. They have to witness your influence expanding into spaces they claimed you didn't belong. They have to accept that the quiet one they overlooked became the unavoidable one they now orbit. That's a psychological reckoning most egos can't handle gracefully. Strategic assassins don't need vindication, but they receive it anyway, as a natural consequence of excellent execution. That's where you are now. You weren't trying to prove anyone wrong. You were trying to build something real. But in building it well, you automatically shattered every limiting belief others projected onto you. Your success isn't about them, but it definitely affects them. It forces them to confront their own mediocrity, their own excuses, their own lack of discipline. You became the standard they can't reach and the reminder they can't escape. And you did it without compromising an ounce of the integrity that made you move differently from the start. What makes this particularly devastating is that you didn't change who you are. You just revealed more of what was always there. You're still calm, still grounded, still operating with integrity, but now that inner world they couldn't see is producing outer results they can't ignore. Your values didn't shift. Your methods didn't compromise. Your character stayed consistent. You simply grew into the fullness of your capabilities while maintaining the essence that made you different from the start. That consistency between who you were in obscurity and who you are in visibility is what separates real power from performance. You don't become someone else when people are watching. You just become more visible. Now that you understand what you actually are, the question becomes, what will you do with this awareness? Will you continue to hide this strategic nature, dimming it to make others comfortable? Or will you step fully into the power of operating as both sacred and savage, honoring your integrity while executing your vision with ruthless efficiency? The world doesn't need more people pretending to be less than they are. It needs people like you who can hold complexity, who can be both gentle and lethal, who can move with grace and precision simultaneously. If this message resonated in your spirit, take action right now. Like this video to mark this moment of recognition. Subscribe, because there's more revelation coming that will continue to unlock your full operational capacity. Comment 777 and your location, as a declaration that you're stepping into strategic mastery without apology. And for those feeling the pull to support this work through super thanks, understand you're not just giving, you're aligning with a frequency that empowers others to embrace their full range of capability. You looked holy because you are committed to something higher than temporary wins. But you moved like a strategic assassin because you understand that purpose without strategy is just good intentions. They weren't ready for that combination. Most people still aren't. But you don't need their readiness anymore. You just need your own continued commitment to being exactly what you were designed to be. Too principled to play dirty, too strategic to be stopped, and too aligned to be thrown off course. The revelation is complete. Now comes the execution. And based on everything you've already accomplished when they weren't watching, they're in for a reckoning they never saw coming. The quiet one was never weak. The peaceful one was never passive. The kind one was never naive. You were always exactly what you needed to be. A force that looks like stillness until it moves. And when it moves, everything changes. That's not deception. That's mastery. And they just got their first real glimpse of what you've always been. Welcome to full visibility, chosen one. The world is about to learn what you've known all along. Underestimating you was their most expensive mistake.